Welcome back, everyone, to the Rebel Nutritionist podcast. Today, I am thrilled to have Faysal Abi with me today, who is a master of all things, I feel like, Faysal, right? So,
Mhm.
after suffering a debilitating back injury from a car accident, Faysal became intimately familiar with the traditional or expert approach to chronic pain and injury, meaning pharmaceutical drugs, physical therapy, and finally surgery. When that formula failed to provide any relief, Faisal began to study the human body's design, function, pain, and the mind body connection, right? Something we talk about here a lot. After several certifications, including yoga, massage therapy, and posture alignment, Faisal pieced together a powerful approach to helping people with chronic pain or those simply looking to optimize their body by increasing their strength and flexibility. With his roots in martial arts, yoga, extreme fitness, and sports, Faisal is well versed in the demands of an active body, and I am super pumped for this conversation today. So, welcome.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I feel we're definitely aligned with the work we're doing on some level.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to hear your story. Want to know, like so many people that come into this world, right? Of the world of whether we're talking about medical medium, whether we're talking about like the integrative functional space of things where it's not just about medicating and cutting people. Like, give us your journey, how you got here.
Yeah, that's how do I keep this short and sweet? Well, I was a police officer for 10 years
Thank you for your
and
duty.
I appreciate that. Thanks. And when you start getting signs from the universe that you're supposed to change your path or direction and I was teaching yoga as a police officer and I kind of felt like maybe on some level I should be transitioning more into the healing arts. I didn't have the courage to fully make that jump. So the universe kind of guided me in a very violent sort of way. I got in a car accident, fractured my neck, traumatic brain injury, all kinds of other issues. And that kind of started the whole healing journey. It started the whole trying to understand my body, what was happening, because when you go into your primary care physician, they kind of they're great at looking at the symptoms of
Right.
something, not the cause of something. At least that was my experience. So it was a lot of take these pills. The PT, you're there for 15 minutes and they throw some exercises at you without even really diving into what's happening with your body. So it's very frustrating. So I took it upon myself to kind of start diving deep into pain, structure, and how to help the body after a trauma or misalignment, depending how you want to look at it. Backtracking just a little bit, you mentioned medical medium, and so right after my accident, I got super sick,
Mm.
like like, and I couldn't understand what happened, right? Like it doesn't make sense. All of a sudden, I have a flu for this long after my accident, and I read something specific in the medical medium literature somewhere about how when tissue or when the body is under extreme stress, like an accident or a divorce, or that all these hidden pathogens or
Mhm.
dormant pathogens kind of come out to play. And that's exactly what happened with me. So I ended up with a whole host of not just physical pain, but also like immune system issues.
Wow. And so what so you did all these other so that was the universe's way of saying, "Okay, here's your new road."
Uh,
And so what did you do with it? Like did you so you read medical medium, started following that, started just throwing yourself into these different modalities and then what happened?
yeah, I'm a firm believer that the body has all the resources it needs within itself to kind of repair itself. And we just kind of have to either support that a little bit or get out of the way, right? So that was So part of it, the structural part, was understanding how a dysfunctional body, meaning misaligned muscles or compensation. Some muscles are too strong, some are too weak. Um, a lot of like Pete Egoscue sort of work. Um, that was to me like the one of the holy grails of looking at chronic pain in the body. It was
Right.
really understanding structure. Now, for the deeper stuff like the brain injury, the immune system stuff, I started deferring to the medical medium work. And it was really, it seems complicated and overwhelming in the beginning, right? It's like no gluten, no dairy, no eggs. But when you think about it, it's like what he's really saying is fairly simple, which is real food and plant-based for the most part, and minimize, if you can, the proteins, the animal stuff. And immediately things started clearing up for me. And then the ultimate piece of that wellness was something called biomagnetism.
Do tell.
That was the ultimate piece of that. Um, so can I tell you a story? I feel
Please,
like things are always better with a story.
please. I love stories.
All right, I have a dear friend of mine. We both go to a meditation school. She lives there in Italy, and I've been a part of this meditation school for maybe 10 years, maybe even more now, maybe like 12 or 15 years. And since I've known her, she's had really debilitating um, neck issues. Okay, like to the point where she has to a few times a week she just has to lay down for a day or two. It's
Wow.
really sad.
Wow.
and, and she'd seen everybody under the sun, neurologists, PTs, body workers, doctors, and she was having a lot of spinal cord issues at the same time, like almost like autoimmune sort of stuff, where
Mhm.
the spine is sort of like narrowing and shutting down, and there's inflammation. And even a doctor at one point told her, like, you're going to be paralyzed. It's just a matter of, is it going to be 2 years,
Wow.
5 years, or
Wow.
so. I end up in Italy, and I'm with my sister, and she picks us up, and I'm like, "Hey, great to see you. How's this like neck thing working out? Any updates on that?" She says, "You're not going to believe this story." And I was already excited, right? Like anything that's like out of the
Right.
ordinary, I'm intrigued by. And she goes, "I met this guy who uses magnets." I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "Faisal, one session, and it was gone." So right then and there, something in my gut said, I'm gonna meet this guy and I'm gonna study with him. Okay. But this was like, I don't know, 8 years ago now, maybe. So fast forward a year from that incident, I had a hernia. Okay. If you know anything about hernias, they just don't go away on their own,
No.
according to like,
Right.
no, you got to have surgery. They got to put in like a little patch in there to stop. But this hernia was so bad, just lifting 20 pounds or go in the bathroom, I had to hold it in. Freaking terrible. I don't know if I could swear on this podcast, but I would. It was that bad. It was like
You
painful,
can. It's fine.
constantly there. Yeah, constantly there. So this guy comes to mind, connect with him, do a session with him. The next day, all symptoms of the hernia are gone. Okay. I go to pick up 20 pounds, don't feel anything. Go to 50, go to 100, go to 150, go to 200 pounds. Maybe I feel a little bit at like 200 pounds, but I just 10x my weight in less than 24 hours. That's without symptoms, right? I can go to the bathroom without holding something in. Okay, so now there's like two things around biomagnetism, my experience and my friend's experience. And so I ended up studying with this gentleman. And this is now like I feel like the last missing piece of for me, right? It's nothing is not everything is for everybody, or not one thing is for everybody, right? Like some people resonate really well with something and others are like, it really didn't do anything for me. But for me, and in my practice, this was a missing piece. The balancing the body's energetic system, the pH, hidden pathogens, and so on and so forth.
Wow.
Wild.
So wait a minute. So the hernia, did the hernia go away?
All I could tell you, for all I know, it's still there, but all the symptoms of the hernia are gone, right? We have to be very
Right.
careful when we're saying things are healed in today's world, right? Because I don't usually like to use that word. I like to say, are things better, right? Are things better? Are you still having symptoms? Because who really knows? We know that someone can have a broken back, literally a broken back, and zero symptoms. They're
Right.
functioning perfectly the same, and someone can have nothing wrong with their body, and they can't even get out of bed, or nothing wrong on an X-ray with their
Right.
spine,
Right.
but they can't even get out of bed because they're in so much pain.
Right.
So that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in, uh, do I really care what an MRI says? Maybe to some degree, but that's not the factor, right? For example, 80% of athletes have a torn rotator cuff, but not all of them need surgery. What's the
Right.
factor that you see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
So some of them don't even have pain. And some people have a ton of pain and don't have anything wrong with their rotator
Right.
cuff. So that's what I'm interested in, kind of like the pain factor.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I mean, I resonate with that. I'm sure people do. So then what are you doing in the work that you do? Like, how do you work with people now? What is the work that you actually do? What is your healing? How do you heal people?
Yeah, I love it. I love that you say that. I never ever, I always say people can call you a healer, but you can never call yourself a healer.
I know.
Like that's just, and so I never do that. But so I teach mobility and flexibility classes, kind of like a stretch class, 3 days a week, and you really start to see a theme in people's bodies, right, from today's lifestyle. And this is why we briefly mentioned earlier, like yoga.
Yeah.
And I was talking to you about how, so I practiced yoga for more than half my life, and knowing what I've known in the last 7 years, it really changed my mind about the practice.
Okay. We need to hear more about that then.
Some people are just going to hate me for what I'm about to say. Yoga causes a ton of dysfunction in the body,
I don't
a
disagree.
ton of dysfunction in the body. Anytime the body does too much of one thing, it starts to have issues, right? The body doesn't like the same movement over and over and over again. It's just not the way to have a balanced structure.
Right.
Okay. So, in today's world, right? What are we doing a ton of? We're doing a ton of sitting, right? Driving, eating while we're sitting, watching TV. People are sitting for 8 to 15 hours a day and then they go to sleep. It's crazy. The
Hmm.
average American walks 4,000 steps a day.
Wow.
4,000 steps a day. That's nothing.
No.
That's nothing. We're meant to walk hundreds of miles. I mean, this is what our body is designed for. And we just sit there. And what's happening when we sit, Meryl? Our hamstrings are going to sleep and over lengthened. Our glutes, same thing. Our paraspinals over lengthened and we're like leaning forward. And what are you doing a ton of in yoga? You're over lengthening the hamstrings, you're stretching the glutes, and you're stretching the paraspinals. Like down dogs all day long, forward folds all day long. Like almost half the class is downward dogs and forward folds. That is exactly what the human body does not need in today's world. It just doesn't. And then people may feel temporary relief for 20, 30, 40 minutes after class or even a couple hours, and then their pain is exacerbated. So I've written 2 books so far, one on low back pain and one on chronic neck and shoulder pain. And we go really deep into this stuff. But you're basically reinforcing the dysfunction. You're reinforcing what the body does during sitting and more of it. What you need to do is do the opposite of what happens when you sit. So I was huge into vinyasa. I mean, it was my life for years. A class every single day for I maybe missed a couple of classes in years. Um, and knowing what I know now, it can cause more pain and more issues than benefit, which is why my classes now are like functional movement rather than yoga.
So,
So I don't know,
right. So you're saying not so much yoga, but more of this functional movement.
more functional movement. What does the average person's body need today? And it is a stronger back, it is opening up the chest, it is stretching the quads and the psoas, right? It's a ton of work on the feet because the feet are asleep from all the shoes we've been wearing over the years. It is resolving neck and jaw issues. Um, so that's kind of the direction my classes usually move into, and I'm very focused on um, how to really get to the root cause of what pain is in the body. And it is almost always a muscle imbalance if it's
Mm,
not an emotional issue or a pathogenic issue.
wow. Okay. Fascinating. Yeah, I have so many questions around because um okay, so I want to address the first question is back pain, right? So you said something about back pain, right? And I totally get that it's a muscle and like muscle, but I do know so many people, right? Dr. John Sarno has the book on ending back pain and how it's really tied into the emotions too. And
Yeah.
I've had people read that book. I had a guy, literally, I had a client who was supposed to have back surgery. Like I spoke to him on a Friday. He was supposed to have surgery the following week. And I'm like, I told his wife about the book. He went and got it. He canceled his surgery. The guy is doing amazing. He's back to playing golf. I had
Did he say what the factor was in that book that
well,
was
I think
like,
it's the he really tied it back into the mental emotional component that really resonated. So do you believe there is a mental emotional component to the back pain?
100%?
Okay.
And 100%. And I'll even add to what you just said. Different parts of the body represent different emotional or mental stagnations. Okay, so I'll backtrack a bit. All right. When we are this is my experience, right? This is my experience. And having worked with thousands of people around this and been a body worker, this is my experience. When we are unable or don't have the format and the tools to process something emotionally, the body holds on to that
Mhm.
in some way, shape, or form until we know how to release it or to feel it. Okay.
Okay.
So the low back represents, and so by the way, in the book I wrote, it's more like a manual, I guess, because it's not copyrighted or anything yet. The low back represents, we talk about all the different things that can cause low back pain: diet, sleep positions, sitting positions, muscle imbalance, and then finally emotions. Low back pain represents financial insecurity, not feeling safe, not feeling supported, insecure, right?
Mhm.
Not insecure in a negative way, insecure like just life is insecure right now, right? Someone got laid off, you're laid off, you don't know if you're going to have a job in 2 weeks. Something happened to your husband, you know how you're going to pay the bills, or something happened to your wife, and now you're going to be alone, whatever the case is. Okay. And different parts of the body represent usually different emotional components or sources that need to be expressed. Neck and shoulder pain has a different emotional stuff. Organs have different emotional stuff. So yes, 100. There's not like a sometimes. Sometimes, almost always, there is an underlying component, and I also don't go so heavy into the emotions and the woo woo stuff because sometimes it's as clear as your glutes are too weak, your hamstrings are too weak, and your quads and your psoas are doing all the work, and we just have to rebalance that, right? So
Right.
there's also a technical form of like what the human body should look like structurally, anatomically, functionally, and when that's deviated, you can have issues too.
Ri Right. So I feel like it's like with so many other things, it's yes and, right? It's the
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure there's that emotional connection, but then there's likely some structural that goes along with that.
Well, so and sometimes my mind is blown because I'll have a client come For example, one just had a really bad car accident, I don't know, maybe like 9 months ago, 3 months of really bad chronic neck pain. And her neck wasn't aligned, like her neck was really far forward, the shoulders are rounded. One session of biomagnetism, and her pain went away. I was shocked because I thought, like, okay, we're gonna have to do posture work, we're gonna have to do body work. Like, this is just, meanwhile, we'll do the magnet work. And the magnets resolved the pain for her. And that to me was shocking because I thought it was gonna be a lot more complex.
Right.
And not to say that there won't be neck and shoulder issues in the future, because if things aren't aligned, it's just a matter of when, not if.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, I could see a
Yeah.
kid walking down the street and their knee and their hip is all jacked up, and I could tell you it could be tomorrow or it could be in 15 years. That kid's probably going to need a knee and hip replacement with the way the structure is.
Right.
Sadly, most of us, Meryl, wait till the surgery is needed to start addressing the issue rather than, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I always say the same thing in the work that we do, right? We're doing some testing, we do lab work, and I'm like, oh yeah, your lab work indicates that there's cardiovascular disease going on or pre-diabetes going on, and give it 7 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you're going to be full blown in this case, in this issue. And they just look at me like, oh, all right, well, wait.
We're not there yet. They look
Right,
at you
right.
like we're not there yet.
We're not
Yeah.
there yet. I'm like, well, there's something called prevention. People are like, yeah, yeah, no, I'm not, prevention isn't sexy enough for people. I always say, but not everybody, obviously, right? I'm making a
Yeah.
very big
Of course.
generalization, but I hear you, right? Like it would be so much more helpful if we nipped it in the bud right at the time. So, so like you say, it's a yes and. So someone who's having what
Yeah.
I want people to hear is like, okay, you could be having the pain, and I do want to get into the biomagnetism a little bit, and so maybe there are things that help with pain, but the fact is pain, yes, is a bigger symptom of the fact that there's probably something else going on. So the pain goes away. But like you say, you still have to look at the structure of how your body is aligned or misaligned, so and so forth, right?
To kind of just touch base on that, when we're just looking at the structure and not the emotional piece, the pain doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Meaning, like, well, your structure is now proper. I don't understand why you're still in pain. Well, you could do these movements, but I don't understand why you're still in pain. Like, what's really going on, right? Like, I can't help but think of this gentleman I was working with, very resistant to any sort of help. And we're doing body work on the table. He wasn't getting better. It was like the third or fourth session. He was like, I'm still in pain. I'm still in pain. And I had my hands underneath his shoulders, and I go, "What?" I said, "What are you holding on to?" So he breaks down crying, and I thought at first I thought he was laughing, and it kind of scared me because it was so abrupt and like a waterfall of emotions.
Wow.
And he goes, since my kids left my house, my home, I don't know who I am anymore because they moved off to college. And as abruptly as this flood of emotions came, it just, he like cut it off. Like, he cut off the process of processing. He gets up off the table. He's like, "Oh, that was strange." Walks out. Never saw him again.
No way.
Never saw him again. Never saw him. So that is the inability to
Yeah.
process emotion and the inability to feel what is actually happening. And that pain was directly behind the heart, right? And it was grieving. It was,
Yeah.
in my opinion, it was grieving his children leaving and now him not necessarily having an identity. And so he saw a bunch of PTs, he saw a bunch of doctors, he saw a bunch of body workers. And what was the root of that? I don't know what the root of that is. Only he can answer. But if I had to guess, I would say this is something unresolved emotionally that needs to be addressed. Does that make sense?
100%. 100%. I listen, there's a saying, I can't say that I coined it, but that I've heard, the issues are in the tissues.
Yeah, I love that.
Right?
I
I
love
mean,
that.
it's so true. I had a yoga instructor that said that the issues are in the tissues, and I say that all the time because things that happen, you look at people who are dealing with chronic illness and pain, and you start going back. I mean, much of the work that I do, it's getting a long history, and we're doing a timeline, and you go back and see trauma and you see unresolved trauma and you see all of these things, and it carries forward into their being. And what goes on in the brain is definitely carried over into the body, right? Those emotions. And
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
I say this, I love what you just said. The body, the body is a representation of someone's mental state.
yeah,
It is just like you take the brain and make an art piece of it, and that's make art of it, and that's the body, and the body is representing what's up here.
yeah,
And it's hard, right? Because if you're so stuck in your head, you're like, but that means it's my fault. What does this
right,
mean? Or you can look at it as you are 100% capable of changing and transforming,
yeah,
right? You can look at it in two different ways. I'm a victim. Oh my God, the things that happen to me aren't my fault. And now I have this because of it. Or these were lessons. I'm going to learn from them and I'm going to change what it is I'm feeling, with my perspective of the world, my framework,
yeah.
and therefore have a different body to represent that new framework.
100%, right? You can change your body to 100%. I mean, look, I don't know if you know Joe Dispenza, right? He literally
Yes.
healed his back. He
Yeah.
broke his back,
Yeah. Yeah.
physically healed his back through his mind. Didn't, you know,
Yes.
so, no matter what you think of him or not, I mean, the man and there's many like him, like you say, right? These people who are considered walking miracles because they have just literally changed what's in their mind. So I'm a huge proponent of that. And I, love this conversation for that. So, um, before we shift gears, because I do want to shift a little into something that I want to talk about, but talk to me about shoes. You mentioned something about shoes.
Oh,
And so I had, wait, and I'm curious because now I need you, now you'll be the expert in this. So Dr. Sherry Green, that was on the podcast, we were talking about protein, which we're going to go to in a second. But I went and played pickleball with her one day, and I went in my Hokas, and I love my Hokas because they're nice and
oh no.
and she
Because
hated them. She's a podiatrist by trade. She's like, you cannot wear Hokas. I'm like, I love these shoes. She's like, they're so bad for your feet. So talk to us about shoes.
don't tell me what she said about the Hokas yet, because I'm gonna tell you and then see if it aligns.
Okay.
All right.
All ears.
Student after student, client after client comes to me with my podiatrist, my doctor, my PT recommended these Hokas, and I'm so glad I found them.
Right.
And I just like kind of like just do this because I'm like, where do I start? Okay, where do I start? And let's try just peeling one layer of the onion here, and this is the layer.
Okay.
Our feet are muscles that need to be worked. Okay. There's a ton of bones in there. I think 25 or 26 bones in the feet alone, three different arches, tendons, ligaments. All these things need to be worked, just like your bicep needs to be strengthened, just like your pecs, just like your back, just like a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
When you put your feet in shoes, they become inhibited. They are unable to work. The greater the cushion of the structure of the shoe, the greater the cushion underneath your foot, the more impact on the rest of your body.
Okay.
I'll follow up with that in a second. And the less your toes are able to spread, I almost want to put my foot up in the video and show you what a foot should spread like.
Right.
The, the more restricted your shoe is and the less the toes are able to spread, the less your foot works. All right. So let's follow up with the cushion comment. When you go running, if you don't run, imagine when you were younger and you were running. Okay. If you have a pair of shoes on, you're probably going to heel strike the ground pretty hard. And that's pretty jarring to the rest of the spine. Now imagine running barefoot. Okay. You're probably going to run a lot lighter and you're probably going to run on the front part of your feet. Now, unless you're a sprinter and you've like had some professional training, that's how you run generally. But most of us aren't, and we don't really run in a functional way. So now no shoes, you're running super light on your feet. Actually, it's barely any impact on your feet. It's almost like running at the beach versus barefoot, or
Right.
running on gravel or concrete barefoot. You're going to hit very, very light. Your
Yeah.
feet are barely going to touch the ground. Now, load up a bunch of uh, cushion underneath that foot, and your impact gets harder and harder because the foot looks for a hard surface when it lands.
Mm.
Okay, so that's the first thing. What do Hokas do? They're super soft. And there's a ton. The padding is like this thick underneath the Hoka, right? Because it's meant to minimize impact. Now, I'm not against Hokas, period. I'm against getting on Hokas thinking your symptoms are going to improve when all the Hokas are going to do is make things worse down the line because your feet aren't working as much as they should. Does it mean you go to a barefoot shoe or a five finger shoe tomorrow? Hell no. Hell no. Because your feet aren't ready for that. In working with people and changing their body, I can get someone who's hunched over straight in maybe a month or two, depending on how severe. I can get their neck and shoulders back. I can get their knees pointing forward. I can get their hips even in no time. Feet can take years to change.
Wow.
Can take years to change. So you got to be very patient, and you got to work the muscles and exercise them just like you do everything else. So that is my issue with Hokas. They put the feet to sleep even more, allowing them to do less work. Eventually, whatever symptom you're having in the feet just gets exacerbated. Look at it this way: every part of the foot. This is why everything starts in the feet. Every part of the foot that isn't being utilized properly correlates to an issue up the chain in the body.
Right. Well, that's why reflexology is such a big thing, right?
Correct. So if someone's big toe isn't hitting the ground, right, they're probably having an issue with their glutes. I could go to every single foot part of the foot and tell you what the symptom's going to be up the chain just by seeing someone walk. And
Wow.
it's not because I'm so brilliant, just like your work. After doing something for so
Right.
long, you
You know.
see markers and you're like, oh, this means this is going to happen if we don't address it, or it means this is already happening based on this, right? You could probably look at someone's uh, results and know what issues symptoms are having. The
Yeah.
same thing with the feet. I could look at someone's feet and say their low back is probably hurting, their shoulder, their whatever.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
Okay, so the next question is, what shoes should we be wearing if it's not the Hokas?
yeah, great question. Um, my favorites are the ones I use mostly are ultras. I don't think they're the best, but they're just kind of like easy to find, and they're like at REI's or on Amazon. And what I like about them is the wide toe box. Right, so the front of the shoe allows all five toes to kind of spread a little bit more than other shoes. Okay, and it's really important that the higher the drop, which is like the heel of the shoe. This is why I'm super against high heels. Um, the greater dysfunction there's going to be. So
Yeah.
you want your feet to almost be walking on a flat surface. A 2 millimeter drop is okay. Four, okay, not the end of the world. But you start getting to 6 millimeters, 8 millimeters, a few inches, like women wearing heels, you're going to have problems.
Oh wow.
So
So
I
you
would
say
look for a wide
LTRA, ultra?
ultras. Yeah, Altra.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, oh, AL.
I really like this one company called Newton too. I'm a huge fan of Newton's. I wish their toe box was a little bigger, but they have this really interesting idea of almost like more padding in the front of the foot. So it causes you, if you're a runner, to use more the front of the foot rather than heel striking. And I'm a
So
huge fan of that. And I really like those shoes, but the toe box could be a little bit bigger, but they are amazing. But if you're doing traditional shoes like Asics, oh my God, Nikes, Brooks, Jesus Christ.
that's
I
so
mean, you
funny. Yeah,
can
Sherry yells at me. She's like, "You cannot be wearing those Hokas anymore." And I'm like, I always thought the more padding, the better. And it's so funny. My ex husband's a podiatrist. My son is now in his podiatry residency.
no way.
Yeah, so and they never said to we never talked about sneakers. I'm gonna have to ask my son about this and ask him, because we're always under the pressure. The more padding you have, the better it is because it's cushioning the running. And my left knee kills me, and I'm like, now probably why this whole like right.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah. Anytime there's knee issues, always look at what's below, what's above.
Yeah.
So the foot, the hip, and it could even be coming from the opposite shoulder often. If
Yeah,
the
no, I'm
body's
sure.
rotated,
Yeah, we're gonna have
yeah.
to talk after we're done with this podcast. I got to talk to you. We got to
I'll take a look at your structure and tell you
I'm
what to
so
pay attention
misaligned
to.
probably. I'm like, oh, as you're talking, I'm like, oh, well, I can do this. I got this.
Ah, this hurts too, and that
Right,
hurts.
right. I'm like, oh God, wait, what? All right. Well, that we'll talk offline about,
Did
but
that kind of register regarding the feet, or did it seem super
100%.
foreign, like it didn't make sense?
Oh, no, no, no. Registers 100%. And I'm sure
Yeah.
people listening, that's why I wanted to ask the question because I think there's a lot of us. I mean, we all walking around like the newest and greatest in cushiony shoes, right? Everybody's got the Hokas or the On Clouds or whatever. They never worked for me. And
Oh, the ons. Oh my God.
oh,
Yeah.
they hurt my feet terribly, but I think that a lot of people are probably like, "Holy shit, my sneakers are like the root of my problem." So I think that is an
Yeah.
important conversation to have. So thank you for indulging me in that. So yeah, I feel like we could touch on like a million little things, but we need to be cognizant of time too. So
I get it.
all right, so I'm going to pivot a little because we started to talk about this before we came on, and we have to talk about this because this is like big conversation. Because I mean, and so people listen to us not always on video, right? So people are
Yeah.
listening to us on Spotify, wherever. So if they're not looking at you, they can't see like you're a pretty muscular guy, right? Like you're in really good shape. Okay.
That's very sweet. That's thank you, but I appreciate that. I don't think I'm very muscular. I like to think I'm functional, right?
Well, right,
Like,
okay, but
yeah, yeah.
if someone was looking at you, let's just say for the purpose of this conversation, you have muscle, right? You're not like a scrawny pencil, okay? And so the conversation behind that is where I'm going with this is that you are vegan, correct?
I'm not vegan. I'm not vegan.
You're not vegan, but so do
No,
you?
but I don't eat a lot of meat. I
Okay.
don't eat a lot of
All
meat.
right.
Yeah.
So the point of that meaning people think we have to eat chicken and meat and fish. We have to eat
Yeah.
animal-based protein to really be able to build muscle, right? The whole conversation about and where the pendulum is right now and the whole protein conversation is way over like everybody's I got to eat a gram per pound of body weight, which kills me, right? And we're killing our livers and we're doing all of this.
Yes.
Right. So give me your take on the protein, what you do in your life, but more of, the general protein conversation of you don't need to be eating so many animals to get to build muscle, right? I think that's the bigger conversation. I'm in the gym. I need to do this, and
Yeah. It's really hard to get that. Um, there's been so much propaganda
yep,
and PR around eating a ton of meat to build muscle. And really, what it's sad, what it's doing is exacerbating a lot of chronic illness in people. Um, you could even see it in someone's face when they have a lot of meat. They don't look very healthy. There's not a lot of blood flow. There's too much fat. You could even see it like in their system. Um, and yet they're continuing to push this agenda. Like, I remember one guy I was on one of my first podcasts, The Hack Life with Joel Evan, and he has this guy on there who eats a ton of meat.
yeah,
And I'm not going to mention his name, but I'm sure people are going to figure out who it is I'm talking about. And really successful guy, very brilliant guy. He's like a doctor. He's a PhD in something, can't remember what. And he eats I don't know how many pounds of steak, but he fasts in between. And the guy looks like he's gonna pop. He's so red and inflamed. And this isn't to put him down,
right,
but if you're looking to follow somebody, okay, what's the first thing you look for personally? If you're looking to follow someone's advice, what do you look for, Meryl? Like,
do they
I'll
look
tell you what I
healthy?
look for.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, do they look healthy? Are they
exactly.
Normal weight
Do
on
they,
lean, right? Yeah, I mean,
yeah, do they look healthy? And if someone looks like they're about to get a heart attack to me, right? And they're trying to tell me what I should ingest, I'm like, wait, hold on a second, but you don't really look optimal. You look like you're struggling to breathe. You look like you got a heart disease on the way. Like, I don't know if this is someone I should take advice from. So I say it's really important to have body awareness in the things that you're consuming. Now, some people's perception or thought around body awareness is, well, my body likes Coke, so I drink 3 cans a day. Okay. All right. So that is very dangerous
right,
because that's likely someone who's not very connected to their body.
right.
So maybe meditating and getting someone into a state to connect with themselves will allow them. This is what I teach. Really, all my work is around body awareness.
I love that.
Now, because that's what's important. That's an important factor. But body awareness from a place of what your body wants, not what your brain is addicted to.
Yeah. Oh my God. Say that again. Say that
Yeah.
again.
Body awareness from not what you want, right? Like from like the ego or the brain, like from what your body wants. So this is how I got to the less meat and very little meat in my diet. The following. I decided to experiment with no meat for a week. Here's where I struggled. I was always a little hungry. So I was a little hungry because my body wasn't used to not having meat every single meal. But here's what happened when I stopped eating a whole lot of meat. Energetically, I became much lighter. My meditations were deeper. I became a lot more intuitive.
Yeah.
My sleep became deeper. And I felt like my testosterone levels went through the roof. Meaning, when you're young and you're a male, you wake up with certain parts of your body turned on. Okay,
Right.
and as men start to age, they they often lose that, but they think they're losing it because they're aging. But really, the reason they're losing it, in my opinion, well, it could be several reasons. Uh, a weak core, it could be too much fat in their diet, right? Not enough blood flow and circulation in that area. It could be a stressed out liver and kidney. It could be a bunch of reasons. But I found out when I eliminated meat for that week, I started waking up like I was 15, 16 years old in the morning. Okay? Just this vital energy. So this is where it gets really important, Meryl. There's the most important thing you get out of this podcast should be freaking this right here. Forget what any freaking study says. How does your body respond to the thing? How does it respond? Right? So if I eat meat close to bed or anywhere near 5 hour, 6 hour window, or even that day, I will not sleep as good.
Hmm.
I don't need a study to tell me I need 40 grams of protein because of my body weight. Is like this is what happens to me. I'm not as turned on in the morning. My sleep. I measure my sleep with my Oura ring isn't as deep, and even my oxygen levels are lower. So before you sit there claiming a study says this and this expert says that, you don't even listen to me. Try it yourself. How does your body feel? I'm not talking about your gut being full and now you can't move after a meal, therefore you feel good. That is not the definition of feeling good. You
Right.
shouldn't feel that way after you eat. You should feel energized and ready to continue with your day, not you need a nap. You needing a nap is a sign you ate some that you shouldn't have eaten, in my opinion.
100%.
Shouldn't have eaten that. Shouldn't have eaten that. So if you look at our history, meat was never, unless you were a king or a duke or something, meat was never as readily available as it is to us today.
Correct.
It just isn't. We are not meant to consume that much meat. Like, no way. No way. You had a cow? That cow was your world. That cow was your world for milk, for yogurt, right? You're not going to just go kill that cow. You're going to hold on. Now, if there's a big celebration, right? Someone's getting married, you're probably going to slaughter the cow or the goat or the pig and make a feast out of it. But generally speaking, it was very rare, and you wanted to protect that chicken. You wanted to protect, right? That's my philosophy. I'm not against eating meat. I'm against how much meat we do eat because it causes issues down the line.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think it goes back to sort of the whole like, what were we indoctrinated with as a culture, right? And was it really even, like you say, the right information? Like you go look at what did we all grew up with the food pyramid, and we know now that the food pyramid is a crock, and it was designed by the
Right.
food companies, right?
Yeah.
Mostly the meat industry and the dairy industry, so that it pushed ample amounts of meat so they could sell more meat, right? And not because it was for the greater good of the human population. And then the same thing came out when, when Sherry and I talked about, they really started understanding protein because they were doing nitrogen studies. It really had less to do with structure and function of the body. And now when we hear about, there's conversation about sarcopenia and why we need protein. But I don't think people realize the degree to which sarcopenia is seen. It's more in the elderly with muscle wasting, right? Sarcopenia is actual muscle wasting when your body's muscle is breaking down for many other reasons other than you're not lifting weights, right? Sarcopenia is like a condition where your body is breaking down muscle. Most healthy, normal adults, right, until you get into your elderly years, 75, 85, 90, don't exhibit sarcopenia on a, just because you're not lifting weights, right? It's a condition that happens from a nutritional perspective and biochemistry and all that. So to have this, oh, well, adults are walking around sarcopenic, in my opinion, is irresponsible. Secondly, the key to sarcopenia isn't even protein. So, right. So, like, there's a bigger conversation around that per se, which is on the other end of the spectrum of, protein deficiency. So, or protein excess. And so when we hear, oh, well, you need to be having a gram of protein per pound of body weight, it's so over exaggerated. Like, where is this
You're
information?
going to give people heart attacks.
You are. And
You're going to
look,
give people heart attacks.
most women who are trying to do that, I hear from, and they're like, I am sick. I cannot eat this much. I am now constipated.
Yeah.
I am now bloated.
Yes.
I am now
Oh,
this. I am now that. And I'm like, okay, can we please pull this back? Take of whatever you think you should be eating and literally cut it in half. And that is where you should be. And so, and I guess you see that with the people that you're working with as well, right? Or even in your own training. How, do you count how much protein you're eating, or does that not even matter?
no, I personally do not. I never even crosses my mind personally how much protein I have. And I'm about to turn 42 here. Um, and I'm stronger than I've ever been. I'm quicker than I've ever been. And let me tell you, the other aisle of that are my friends that meat with every meal, eat 3 meals a day, eggs, burgers, you know, cheeses, and you could tell the difference of the diet that's sort of working,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and this isn't like in a cocky way. This is in a very like grieving sort of way because I run into people sometimes I haven't seen in 20 years and my mind thinks what happened?
Yeah.
What happened? Like was it the alcohol? Is it, just not paying attention? Is it not knowing? Probably not knowing. Um and it really hurts. It hurts to see
No, it does.
people listening to quote unquote experts because they're like getting sicker and sicker.
Yeah. It was so interesting. This morning I saw a quote unquote expert commenting on another expert's Instagram material, and debunking that expert's, right. The guy was saying, oh, well, this woman is wrong because she was talking about the mind body connection when it came to losing weight and exercise, right. And so this gentleman was really criticizing this doctor. She's a doctor, for saying, oh, that there's a mind body connection when it comes to weight loss, and that, women need to feel safe in order to lose weight, and women need to. And he's going, no, they don't. It's a matter of, calories in, calories out. And I'm going, no, dummy, they need to feel safe, right? But you have experts. Of course, they need to feel safe. It goes back to the mind body connection we were just talking about.
Oh
But
my God. Yes.
right? So,
Yes.
yeah, so you have an
How are you supposed to lose weight when your adrenaline's elevated, when your
exact
cortisol is elevated? You
exactly.
can't your body can't rest. Your body can't rest and
No,
digest. It's in a constant fight or flight. So if you're telling someone they need to lose weight and not feel safe because it's a calorie thing, you're bypassing the thing that makes us human. They say 90% of disease plus is caused by stress. But how much of our system is designed in addressing the 90%?
right.
None of it. None of it.
Right. So, but the point being is here's an expert dissing
Yeah.
another expert. So are the lay people who are listening to us
Yes.
supposed to really know, right? And now
This is
we
how.
hear, right, this is how, exactly. But
This is
the
how.
other piece of that is, when you talked about science, and Sherry and I have talked about how science has become so flawed and skewed. Like these scientific studies are now, they're being funded by the big companies. They're being funded by bad science. They're
Yeah.
they're being funded by the pharmaceutical companies or the companies that, right. So bad science is abound because there's just no integrity in this world anymore.
Yeah. And Meryl, the solution is this is a solution empowering people to be their greatest guru, guide, trust their heart themselves. And it starts with cultivating a connection with your body.
Yes.
Because, like I said in the beginning, don't listen to me, don't listen to them either. Listen to you. And you have to begin to understand and connect with your body. It doesn't mean you're going to know all the answers right away. It's like it takes years to really get to know somebody, right? When you're in a relationship and you're on a lifelong journey of discovering who your kids are or who your friends are. And the same thing with your body, but you have to start somewhere and stop deferring to people.
I
Stop
love
deferring to people.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, I think that's so important. And yes. So how does someone go about really, like, what would you suggest? Like, let's give people a takeaway. What would you suggest someone does who really is not in touch with their body so well and really doesn't have that, let's call it kinesthetic or whatever awareness of their
yeah,
body? If you have resources, great. We'll share them in the show notes and your books,
sure.
your information. But what is something that someone can take away today that they can use to do that?
Yeah. I would say being aware and present with the feedback your body is giving you after everything you do. Now, obviously, a person who's been in a monastery for their entire life is going to have a very different level of sensitivity to what I just said. And
Right.
someone who's been in school in the West, working a stressful job, in college their entire life, in schooling, and now with children, has probably had less introspection and less body awareness. So I would start with, how does my body feel throughout the day? One of the greatest lessons I had was a teacher of mine told me, every hour for the next 2 weeks, you're going to write down how you feel.
Mm,
And at the end of those 2 weeks, I was reading how I felt. And okay and good is not a feeling. Okay. I was looking at the list and it was like stressed out, anxious, running late. And I was like, oh my God, I have anxiety. Never in my life would I have guessed I had anxiety. I meditate an hour to two a day, right? But throughout my day, I did not know how to be out of fight or flight.
mm,
So it starts with a level of introspection. So you have to start with,
so important.
how do I feel? You have to ask yourself that more often than you think. And then, whenever you do that thing that you do, what's your body's response? So I don't need a study. I don't need medical medium. I don't need my doctor to tell me gluten isn't good for you. I eat it and then I break out in acne. I eat it and then I start getting a runny nose, like allergy symptoms, right? So I eat it and then I'm less frequent in the bathroom. I'm not regular. So you got to start paying attention and peeling back the layers of what is happening in your system. And only you can do that, right? Only you can do that. No one else can do the work for you. But the good news is you're no longer relying on anyone else at that point. That's the beauty, because every study is going to try to sway you one
Yep.
direction or the other to try to convince you 8 cups of coffee avoids colon cancer. 8 cups of coffee or whatever it is avoids colon. Like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Are you kidding me? Like, and people will go and start chugging all this
Oh,
coffee,
yeah.
being dehydrated, adrenaline, cortisol levels through the adrenals are fatigued, and they can't function without the caffeine. They're so addicted. And you try to mention that coffee's an issue or the caffeine's an issue, and it's like you just assaulted their child. Like they will defend coffee to their grave, And that is a sign of addiction.
Yep.
That is a sign of addiction. Like realize how passionate you are about this thing. Like if you told me, Faisal, your 16 ounces of celery and juice in the morning isn't good for you, I'm like, well, it's been working, but I think it's good for me. But okay, thank you. I wouldn't get all mad about it. Like if you're defending it like that, it's like, what's really going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it starts with practical. It's not easy, but it starts with body awareness. It really does. It comes down to like you wake up with a certain energy. What did you do the night before?
Yeah.
What did you eat the night before?
Yep.
How late did you eat? You really want to improve your health? Just don't eat past 5 or 6 o'clock. Watch how your sleep improves. Watch how you start losing weight. That alone is huge. Most of us eat way too much, way too often, and then try to go to sleep on a full
On a full
stomach. And that's the best way to gain weight and
Yep.
to not get good sleep.
Yep. 100% with you. 100% with you on that. Um, so okay. So where do you teach in, like, do you have things online that people can like these
Yeah,
classes
really.
online?
Yeah, really. So, a couple things. I teach 3 classes a week, and they're live streamed,
Okay.
right? For like movement. This is like whenever someone comes to me with a significant issue, I say, look, it's cheaper to just do my classes, and maybe 70 out of 100 people have their physical issues resolved just doing the classes, and it's the cheapest way to kind of like get functional movement into your body, and it's every other day. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, an hour of different movements. Sometimes it's hands, sometimes it's shoulders, sometimes it's neck, sometimes it's hips. Every class is going to be different, and you got to get an understanding of, wow, these movements fix this issue. Maybe I don't need
Right.
this intervention.
Okay.
Okay. So next thing, workshops. My next workshop is in January, and you can follow me on Instagram at Faysal_Abi, FAYSAL_ABI. And my next workshop is on chronic low back pain. This is my second time doing that. So if you have low back pain, that's probably the best way to kind of start getting a real understanding of what's happening structurally, emotionally, sleeping positions, sitting positions. I will be posting more and more content online, like the workshops. I'll probably be recording them and eventually putting them on my website, which is bodyalignmentandoptimization.com. And I feel like you and I hit the tip of the iceberg of so many things that needed to be
Yeah.
covered. Um, but hopefully, it just gets people thinking in a different way, this
Yeah.
podcast,
No,
right?
I think this it's been fabulous. Yeah, we've hit the tip of everything, but that's what, I really do. I had said that to someone very, very recently about being more aware and in tune with their body, because it gives you so much information. And when you are not connected to what your body is telling you, you are missing so much information. Like you said, that becomes more intuitive. So, we'll make sure that we put all of this information in the show notes. People can follow you on Instagram. I already started doing that and whatever, but I want to do some of these classes because I'm like, I have all this stuff. So anyway, we'll end this, but any last words that you want to tell the audience before we duck out of here?
Yeah. Our brain is so good at thinking the same thing over and over again, or looking for solutions in the same way over and over again. And that often leaves us feeling defeated and hopeless. Take a step back with whatever it is you're working through, right? Almost like you're wiping your slate clean, your filter, your lens of looking at the world. Take a step back and open your heart to something greater than your mind and see the answers that come your way,
Mm.
right? Like we get tunnel vision so easily through our ego, through our mind, through our programming. And sometimes the solution is right in front of us and we're just not seeing it,
Yep.
you know?
Love that.
And
Yeah.
and so just have an open mind and an open heart to what's there to be revealed for you. Like just be open. Just say, tell God, tell the universe, tell whatever it is you believe in that you're open to receiving information or understanding and watch how the world becomes a greater mystery but starts revealing itself to you.
Yeah. Amen to that. That is awesome. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for this amazing conversation. Loved it. Loved it. We could have talked for another hour.
I think so.
But and so we'll have you back. We'll definitely have to have you back. But Faisal, thank you for this. Like I said,
You're welcome.
being
Thank you
informative.
for having me, and I love the work you're doing.
Thank
You know, you're really an earth angel, and I really hope you see how many lives you're touching with really trying to give people a different perspective and lens through looking at the world, their bodies, and their health. And God bless you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Back at you. There you go. Great people doing great work is what I love, right? Healing the world. With that, everyone, this is your Rebel Nutritionist signing off. Make it a fabulous day.